much for watching, listening. How about a fantastic joke? You're like, okay, we'll settle for whatever you've got because we know it's not fantastic. Well, this one could be the exception. I asked my kids the other day, would you like anything to eat for dinner? And they said to me, well, what are the choices? And I said, yes or no. You're like, that's stupid. I agree. Generally, these jokes are stupid, but I, of course, want you to subscribe. See, I figured I'd hit the joke first and get it over with, and then ask you to subscribe. You're like, why would I do that to myself? Because we have amazing content from the Bible that helps us in our daily living, and that's what this series is about, called the Trauma Drama. We've been doing this now, a couple episodes for the series, and we're looking at the Good Samaritan parable as it relates to trauma, because we see that Jesus uses specifically the word trauma. It's a Greek word, and he uses it in this parable. And so I want us to think about, we looked last week at what trauma is, or the consequence of abuse, sexual problems, abuse, or abandonment, neglect. And trauma can come as a result of one, all three of those experiences. The problem with trauma is when we experience trauma, it can have ripples such that it triggers into our daily living. We've heard of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. That's a common term that's used in our world today, but it wasn't developed until the 1980s in psychology. And yet in World War I, World War II, obviously there was plenty of trauma, PTSD. And the problem with PTSD now, oftentimes, is we associate it with military stuff. But trauma isn't just an experience from the military. Trauma happens, and I talked about it last week, it happens from neglect or abandonment. It happens from some aggressive attack, whether it's verbal, emotional, physical. It can happen from a sexual abuse. So trauma, but that experience, it can mark us, and then it echoes into our lives. So if there's a trigger, you see this with veterans that come home and they hear 4th of July fireworks, and then it just all of a sudden they get flooded with these memories or experiences. Or you can have this happen if you drive by a certain place. I remember for myself when I was little, there's a place in the back behind my house where I felt something. I was like, and I remember walking by it some years ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the same. It was like it flooded me. It's like a trigger. So how do we get healed from this stuff? How do we not find ourselves stuck in these trauma triggers and the instincts that go with it? And so Jesus speaks to that, and he speaks to it in the parable of the Good Samaritan. And we talked about last week how there were bandits who attacked a guy walking down this road, Jerusalem to Jericho. And they attacked him, they beat him, they stripped him, and they left him half dead. And it's interesting because it says in verse 31, a priest was walking down the road, and when he saw the victim, he kept walking. He moved on the other side. Verse 32, a Levite, when he came to the place, saw him, passed by on the other side. But verse 33, a Samaritan who was on a journey came by and saw him, and he felt compassion. And I think if we're going to really think about trauma and being healed and redeemed from trauma, I think it's really important for us to consider that Jesus sees us. And Jesus isn't like the priest or the Levite. The priest and the Levite saw the victim, saw the beat up guy, bloody, disgusting, repulsive, gory. And they left, they walked away, whatever their reasons were. But the hero in the story is the Samaritan, which is the unexpected hero, because Jesus is telling the parable as an answer to the religious leader's question. And the religious leader, at this time, they thought Samaritans were horrible, less than human. They were awful. It was a clash. And no Jewish person, right standing, had any regard for a Samaritan. And yet in this parable, it's the Samaritan is the hero. And healing starts with being recognized that God sees you. But I also think that sometimes God wants to not only heal us, but also heal through us. So when we see or hear people who have been traumatized, and the results of trauma tend to be pretty ugly, pretty gross, pretty repulsive. And I think there's a boatload of people that we see in our daily living that are experiencing or walking out, reacting to, living in the trauma reaction instincts. People who are aggressive, people who are withdraw and don't engage, people who freeze. All of these are expressions of a trauma experience. And so I want us to be aware that not only do we need to be healed from trauma in our past, but I think that God can heal through us, people around us. Because you see people who are ugly, who are unkind, who are combative, who are beat up, who are disgusting. And that can look in a lot of different ways. It can, be, and I think sometimes when we have wealth and money, we can accessorize, but we still have these behaviors. And so I want us to be careful that when we see somebody who's misbehaving, who's ugly, who's repulsive, let's take for a moment and see them, but let's consider compassion and not just running away, not just being repelled, having compassion. And then let's also think that Jesus sees us in our trauma. We've been beat up and abandoned, neglected, sexually abused. Jesus sees us, and Jesus has compassion. He sees, he cares, he's engaged, and he gives us Holy Spirit to help heal us, as well as healing through us. So as you think about this, it's kind of a heavy episode here, but I think it's so very important and powerful in the journey of healing for trauma. And so I want you to answer this question. It's kind of a little bit lighter, so take a pause and just step back for a second. And all of us can answer this. What's your favorite thing to do in the summertime? You're like, whew, thank goodness. That's a nice, easy, bright one. That's true. And so again, thank you for subscribing. Make sure you hit the notification bell. We'll keep you posted on new content and this fantastic series, Trauma Drama.